going to bring up our presentation here. Let me share that. Change this. Okay, so we're at steering committee meeting number 1. So this is very exciting. I know a number of you like us have been waiting quite a while for this to get started, and we're really glad that we're able to do it. And, you know, even more exciting that maybe there's more opportunities for us to meet in person going forward with how the pandemic's looking. So, you know, we really want these meetings to be very interactive. I think tonight we will do a little bit more talking on our end just to kind of introduce the process and what your roles will be. But we do want to kind of spend some time letting everybody get to know each other. So we're going to, you know, and I sent this in the email ahead of time, but do some, you know, welcome introductions, let everybody on the committee introduce themselves. We'll go around. Then we'll do some overview just about, you know, what we do with planning in general in the city and what it means to start a neighborhood planning process. Go over, I think you all received the roles and responsibilities document, but we'll spend a little bit of time just touching base on those. And then talk about kind of our process and engagement overall. And then we want to spend some time kind of, again, in breakout groups, starting to talk about some of the issues and opportunities in the area, kind of a preview of some of the bigger conversations we'll be having with the community as we get started. And just a quick reminder, I'll remind you again at the end and send out one by email that our next meeting is scheduled for July 20th, and that's again at 6 o'clock. But we will be sending out an email just to get your availability for future meetings and also get a sense of, you know, how everyone feels about continuing to meet virtually. If you want to meet in person, if we want to trade off between those, we're very open to whatever works best for the committee. But I know it can be good to get to know each other in person as well if we have those opportunities. So just quick reminders on Zoom, you know, turn on your video if possible, if you have that, and it's good for everybody to be able to see each other. And I'll try to remember, and if I don't, remind me to close down the presentation when we're trying to talk together so that we can see each other. And gallery view sometimes can work well for that. If you're not speaking, try to remember to mute. So Edwin Ibanez is on our team, and you'll see his name there. But if you're having any technical issues, feel free to send him a chat, just letting him know, and he'll try to keep track of that. We're going to primarily keep this meeting to a discussion amongst steering committee members. We have about 24 of us actually, and I know there were a few who couldn't make it tonight, but you know, there's a lot of discussion to be had between members. So we're going to primarily keep it between those members. But if anybody else is here from the public and you have a question or you want to make a comment of some sort, feel free to chat those questions. You can send them to Edson directly or just generally, and we'll try to get to those if we have time at the end. And just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. That's a reminder to Ella, if we haven't yet hit that record button, that we can do that.
We are all set, we're going.
Okay, thank you. So we will go into a round of introductions, but I'd like to start with Councilwoman Sandoval. She's been able to join. She's been a great partner in getting this process started. And I know has been a champion for the Northwest for some time. So if she's on, I'd welcome her to jump in here.
I'm not sure if the councilwoman has been able to make it on. I apologize for that.
Naomi, can I just jump in for 1 sec in case anyone else is having the same visual experience that I am, which is with the raised hands and different people talking, it's blinking around on the screen a lot. I don't know if anyone else is seeing that. But it might, if those of you who have hands up, if you could put them back down, I think that might fix it.
Thanks for calling that out, Ella. I was like getting a looking at that too.
I was hoping it was just me, but I started to see some nods. So yes, I think it's great to have your hand raised as that function, but I think Zoom is trying to prioritize you with the speaker. So thank you, Naomi. I will pass it back to you.
Thank you. apologize. Councilwoman is running around. She may join a little bit late, and she is so excited for all of this. I know many of you know her. If you don't, you'll get to know her. She's super, super approachable, and everyone in the office, we're so excited for this to start. This is such an incredible opportunity. Every single one of you are going to contribute to the future of Sunnyside. So, and Sunnyside, Jefferson Park, Highland, and Chaffee Park. So if she does jump on a little bit later, I can give you guys a heads up if there's a point that she can jump in on. That works.
Yep, that would be great. Yeah, you just keep an, I'll raise that hand again if I don't see it for some reason. When I'm presenting, I have kind of a limited view of what everyone else is seeing.
Perfect.
So I think what we wanted to do is go around the room, and maybe I'll call out people so that you know when you should go, and I'm gonna hide the screen again or stop sharing. But spend some time doing introductions. So just as we go around, if you want to share your name, your neighborhood, or kind of what perspective you bring to the committee, and then kind of thinking about what success looks like for you in this process. That's just kind of an idea to think about. If you were to go to the end of this process, how would you describe success? So I'll start. I'm Liz Weigel, and I'm with the Community Planning and Development Department with the City of Denver, and I'm the project manager for this project. And I actually live in Congress Park, but I'm very happy to work with all of you through this process. And what success looks like to me, I think I would say a process where everyone has had a chance to participate, and where we've really been able to empower underrepresented groups, and really where people feel proud of the plan at the end and kind of have a sense of ownership that this is a process that they participated in, and really want to see that vision created at the end. So I'll leave it there, and maybe I'll throw it to, we'll go through our city staff first. Maybe Ella, did you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. My name's Ella Stevie, and I am a planner. I'm working with Liz on this Near Northwest plan. So you'll see me quite a lot throughout this. Probably not quite as much as Liz, but I will be here throughout the process. So I, until the winter, I lived in West Highland. I've just moved to Wheat Ridge, sadly, but love these neighborhoods, and I'm very excited to be working on them. And I think what success looks like, I think, what Liz said about the community feeling pride and a sense of ownership of this plan. And I think that the other thing would be that the participants in it feel heard. Liz, is there another question? Are you gonna?
No, that's good. Let's go to Edson.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Edwin Ibanez. Also a city staff here working with Liz on this project here, and currently live in East Denver. And what success looks for me is just looking at underrepresented groups that have been marginalized through this process, and how to get them involved and get their input throughout this process is something that I'm really focused on as well.
Okay, and how about, Cortland, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Liz. My name's Cortland Heiser. I'm the neighborhood planning supervisor in community planning and development. And it's basically my role to oversee neighborhood planning initiative as a program. And we try to have 3 active plans in process at any given time. And so with ramping up this one and another one that's just getting started in Southeast Denver, and then the West area plan, we'll be back up to 3 after having adopted a few plans this past fall. What success looks like to me is that we get a lot of participation from the community, have a lot of great conversations with each other, and at the end are able to create a shared vision that gets documented in the plan. That becomes our roadmap, blueprint for the future, if you will, for the community.
Great. So to save time, I'm not going to go through all of some of our interdepartmental partners who are also on the call. And thank you to all of them, and they'll be participating throughout the process as well. But I did want to move to the steering committee members, and I'm just going to go through in the order that I see on my screen. So I think I have Tripy next. Do you want to go, Tripy?
Yeah, hi, thanks. My name is Tripy Suthar, and I'm with Sunnyside. And success to me looks like great participation, discussion, debate, collaboration, hearing a lot of different viewpoints, and hearing from all the different folks in the neighborhood and all the constituencies, as they're all part of the ecosystem. So residents, businesses, renters, owners, and certainly for us, a big one is our Quig Newton and our DHA property that we've historically had a hard time engaging, and I think I'd like to try extra hard to get their voices heard. Thank you.
That's great. We have Renee Martinez Stone up next. Hi, Renee.
Thank you, Liz. Renee Martinez Stone. I am the director of the West Denver Renaissance Collaborative, which is housed at the Denver Housing Authority. So I work there. So I'm representing the Denver Housing Authority. I live in West Highlands. And what I want to see, what DHA wants to see, or what success looks like, is really that the plan, when we get to recommendation at the end, really has the voices, the values, the culture, and the recommendations that are going to serve this neighborhood in the future, new residents as well as long-term residents seeing their place in the neighborhood. Of course, we want to the last point, bring the systems at DHA to make sure the residents at Quig Newton are represented and their voices are heard. And that, of course, affordable housing and access to affordable housing is addressed in the plan.
Great, thank you. William or Will, did you want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Will. I'm from the Jefferson Park area, and yeah, I would say success. I was gonna piggyback on the participation theme here. Hope we can just get as many people involved as possible, and I think, like Cortland said, just be able to get one, kind of one general concisus that we could submit, have like a clear goal, I think would be a good place to start. This is my first committee too, so I'm still learning, and yeah, excited to be here.
Great, and thank you for participating. How about Emily Weiss?
Yeah, so my name is Emily Weiss. I live in Chafee Park. And I think success for me, similar participation and voice, specifically of traditionally underrepresented voices in this space, but also that we don't just hear the voices, but we implement the things that those voices are asking for. So I think similar to what people were saying, but that the plan actually reflects and represents that, because I think sometimes you can hear a lot of voices, but not actually follow through on what those voices are saying. So I think that's what success looks like for me, for sure.
Thank you. How about Sheila, I have you next.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Shayla Martinez, and I live in the Sunnyside neighborhood, and I've lived here for 25 years. My goal, or I guess success for me, would be kind of like what everyone said. Probably just overall to have like a diverse, inclusive neighborhood where everyone feels safe. But I think a big part for me is being able to represent people that are lower income. Specifically for me, I know the neighborhood has changed a lot, and it's crazy like what it is now. So just being able to help hearing everyone out and just, taking in mind people that are not represented at the table.
Great, thank you. Leslie?
Hi guys, my name is Leslie Traegerowski. I have served as the Executive Director of the Federal Boulevard Business Improvement District since 2014. Sorry, my dog started fighting right when I started talking. One of the things we're the most proud of on Federal is that we have a diversity of businesses and property owners, many of whom are women and minority-owned properties. And what we look forward to in this process is coming away with a zoning plan or just a general plan to help us keep those women and minority-owned businesses in place on Federal Boulevard and keeping that diversity of businesses. So thank you. I see a lot of familiar faces. I've worked with Liz on the East Area Plan, so it's really nice to see all of you again. And Andrew, nice to see you as well. Thank you guys for having me here.
Thanks, Leslie. How about Rebecca?
Hi, Rebecca Hunt. I've been a resident of Highland, what we now call East Highland, I guess, since 1993. What I would really like to see is concrete plans that reflect the ethnic, cultural, and economic diversity of our neighborhoods.
Great, thank you. Tim Bowers.
Hi, I'm Tim Burse. I know phonetically it never works, so no issues.
Sorry
there.
about that.
no issues whatsoever. So I've lived in Highland 40 years this month, so I'm kind of proud of that. Anyway, things that I'm interested in, what success means to me is, like everybody else has been saying, that all the voices are heard, that we listen, that the diversity of our neighborhoods is well represented, and that those voices come forward. And I think the other thing is, when we get down to the end of the plan, I'm hopeful that our plan will be something that truly supports great neighborhoods well into the future, that we're looking forward far enough, and that we're setting expectations and goals that are long-term. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Nola.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Nolan Miguel. I live in the Tripy Park neighborhood. Let's see. I also work for the Global Area Swansea Coalition, organizing for health and housing justice. We've done pretty extensive work around equitable development, and I will shamelessly, we just released our equitable development planner. It's at wedecidethefuture.net. And I've participated in neighborhood planning processes in the past in Global and Elyria and Swansea. Cortland, of course, and I knew each other during that time in Globeville, working on that Globeville plan. And part of this type of process makes me very nervous because of what happened in Globeville and Elyria Swansea. And I think there's really good parts of those plans that, we've been able to mobilize, around like the lack of sidewalks in the neighborhood and things like that. But there's also, things that we're missing, really not being able to go in depth around affordable housing, not being able to go in depth around the cultural context. And I know the planning process has evolved a lot since 2014 when we were working on those plans. So I'm excited to learn about that, but very, very interested in how we can do a really deep analysis of equity and how we can actually talk about reparations and redistribution of wealth in a real way that actually can be language that we can use to mobilize stuff in the future. So, I just wanted to throw that out there. Nice to meet everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Nolan. We appreciate your expertise in joining us. How about Ramon?
Unmute here. Nice to meet everyone. I grew up in the Sunnyside neighborhood. Haven't really participated in neighborhood action committees, but have been at the table as it relates to Denver Public Schools. And I'm looking forward to meeting many of the faces here and having great conversation, honest conversation, learning more about the initiatives and plans that our city leaders have in mind, and seeing if we could be a good voice for our community as residents and as business owners in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Juan?
Unmute myself there. Hi, everybody. Juan Padro. I lived in North Denver for 8.5 years. I no longer live in the neighborhood, but I do own businesses in the neighborhood. And so I appreciate being allowed to sit with this group. I certainly recognize some of you and appreciate the work that you've done over the years in North Denver. So thank you for that. Success for me, I'm going to echo what a lot of other people said. I mean, this really just comes down to having good spirited debate and coming up with solutions that work for everybody in the community, and with a focus on lifting up as opposed to pushing out. So.
Thank you. Nancy?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nancy Vallejo, and I am representing Chaffee Park. I am also representing Beach Court Elementary. I moved into the neighborhood about 5 years ago, but I am a Denver native. In terms of success for me in this committee, I want to make it a point to represent not just our residents here, but also our community members in the neighborhood, as well as our families within our school here in the Chaffee Park neighborhood. And I'm just very excited to be part of this committee.
Thanks, Nancy. Lorenzo?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lorenzo Ramirez, and I am a resident of the Lower Highlands neighborhood for about nearly 40 years now. So I've seen a lot of changes happen just within the last 5 to 10 years, some good, some bad. And I just feel fortunate that I've been asked to be a part of this committee to represent my fellow neighbors and those who are living here and those who were pushed out, just to be blunt about it. And hopefully we can find balance in the old with the new and within the diversity of our neighborhood, and hopefully we can build off that.
Thank you. Esteban?
Hi, my name is Devon Gomez. I live in the Sunnyside area. And thank you again for inviting me to participate in this steering committee. I think for me, success is understanding what the future might look like from different perspectives and thinking about sustainable long-term plans that works for everyone.
Liz, you're muted.
No, I thought I was on mute. Nita, are you ready?
Thank you, Liz. Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches, buenas tardes. I'm also a Denver native, born and raised in Denver and lived in several neighborhoods across the city. Have been in Chaffee Park now for 41 years. So my mom has left this world, and she left as a resident of Sunnyside. And my dad, when he left as a resident of Regis. So we've been in this part of the city for many, many years, generations, actually. So what I'm hoping, everybody's mentioned many of the things that I would also see would be successful. But Juan, I really appreciate that you said we also look at, I don't want to push any more of our people out. I want, and I don't think it's neighborhood centric. That used to happen, you know, Highlands, Lower Highlands. I never even knew about those neighborhoods. Chaffee, Sunnyside. I hope that we come together and realize together that we can have a greater impact on the world around us. It not only in our neighborhood, but intertwined as a side of town, North Denver, if you will, and all of our many blocks and communities. I also don't want us to forget our houseless relatives. I don't call them homeless. They are people that have no house. They don't have a house, but they surely are part of who we are as a neighborhood, or who we're not as a neighborhood. And I'm hoping that success is about that inclusion, and also that acknowledgement of our history and culture and cultures that have come through these neighborhoods. And it's changing again. And how do we respect that and keep that? I don't want to lose that. We keep losing businesses, we lose families, we lose areas that we knew with certain, you know, cultures and impact on the community, and we're losing that. So how do we conserve that? And that's my other piece. I'm very, very much concerned about open space in the environment, our tree canopy and climate change, and that whatever we come up with, that we're also sensitive to our other relatives, the animals that share with us, and the plants and the trees. And lastly, I am a trustee of Regis, for full disclosure, and they're going to redevelop 52 acres of land that we as a community should have a strong voice about what that looks like. I want a grocery store. I don't want to have to get my car. I want to walk to one, and not Family Dollar. But anyway, those are, you know, our health clinic, and, you know, just things we don't have if you look through the book and see how much we lack in many of our neighborhoods. And lastly, I'm so glad that Denver Housing, I was a Denver Housing Commissioner for many years, and our struggle has always been about how we isolate folks in developments, and how do we do that and be humane? I don't understand that. So I'm really proud of Trevista, and I'm going to speak up for them. I know Beach Court's down the block for me, but Trevista, my grandson goes to, and the diversity I'm seeing there just really gives me a great deal of hope.
Great, thank you so much. And I think you're already getting started on our conversation later, where we can kind of delve into some of these issues. Tim Hernandez.
Yo, mucho gusto a todo. Bienvenido. I appreciate everybody being here. My name is Tim Hernandez, and I'm really excited to be able to workshop and talk with everybody. I'm born and raised. I grew up on 38th and Irving, and I still live there with my aunt, and I'm a teacher at North High School. So I never left the hood, you feel me? So I'm really excited to hear some of the eclectic desires that we're hoping to balance in here, you feel me? I think my role and what I really want to bring is Northwest Denver has the highest rate of displacement of Latinx people as a result of gentrification in the country. That's over Detroit, Chicago, LA, Oakland, San Francisco, everywhere else. And that's in our barrio, that's in our neighborhood. And so I will be leveraging a lot of our young voices, especially at North. I'll be workshopping, I'll be teaching a class called Latinos in Action, where we'll be taking what we're talking about in this committee and talking about it with students, soliciting their feedback, working, because as great of a neighborhood as we could hope to build for ourselves, what we need to be invested in is building a neighborhood for whose neighborhood this is eventually going to be. And that's our young people. That's the folks that are going to be stepping in, which remain predominantly Latino, Chicano, Latinx, and making sure that that's at the forefront of the way that we're informing these decisions and making sure. And I'm sure, you know, if y'all are cool with it, Liz and everybody else, you know, I'm more than happy to bring students to the meeting so you can hear directly from them as well. I think that's going to be an essential component of this as well. So happy to be a segue that way, but deep love for the north side of North Denver, and mucho gusto. Gracias.
Thanks so much, Tim. Let's see if I'm missing anybody else. Charlie.
Hi, yep, I'm Charlie Berger with Denver Beer Co. in Cerveceria, Colorado. So we've operated a small business in Sunnyside and in Lower Highlands for the last 10 years. And, I'm a local Denver native and my kids are too. So we have a lot of generations in my family in Denver. So again, again, to echo what everybody says, I think, a super inclusive community that can be built. I'm excited personally to work on the future of what we can do. I think that near Northwest is exciting. It's an exciting, super, a lot of opportunities going forward for this neighborhood. So when we put our voices and minds from this smart group together, I'm confident that everybody will have the opportunity to, put something on the table that will really be an exciting piece of the heritage and the culture of the city that we all love. So thanks for including me.
Great, thank you. I think I grabbed all the steering committee members. If I missed you for some reason, please raise your hand. But in the meantime, would Council District 1 staff like to jump in and introduce yourselves as well?
Sure. Rebecca Hunt, did you go? I can't, oh, you did, sorry. Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm Naomi Gerditz. You might have seen me sneaking around handing out handbooks to you guys or emailing you relentlessly about it. There's still a few people I need to track down, so I will be messaging you on Zoom to get your address, or at least the best place to drop it off. We put this together. It's just from the District 1 office from Councilman Sandoval. Ah, yeah, Nolan, nice. And we wanted to distribute something that's physical. We all learn different. This is going to be a really incredible learning experience for all of us. We're all going to be challenged. It's going to be difficult at times. We're going to have tough conversations. But however your learning style is, if you like to scribble or anything, we hope these handbooks are useful and a way to take notes and engage in the communities. So I'm Naomi. Again, I have my master's in planning. I'm super excited about this process. I will be working very closely with our planners here and with you all over the next several years on this project. So I'm gonna kick it over to Gina.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi, everyone. I am Gina Volpe, and I am one of Councilman Sandoval's aides. I've been in the office 5 years, worked for the former councilman as well, and excited to be a part of this process as well. And just looking at other things we've done in our office, I'm hoping this group can really figure out the community engagement piece, because time and time again, keep seeing things show up and on the council floor. And that's when people are like, I haven't heard about this. There hasn't been any outreach. So I'm hoping we can figure it out. It's a tough one because, the way to reach everybody is really expensive, right? So how do we reach people? How do we get to people? How do we engage people on a limited budget? So, but just excited to be a part of the process. Seems like an amazing, amazing group of people. So thank you all for participating, and just keep talking to people, keep sharing, keep reaching out to anyone and everyone. I am a North Sider, born and raised in the North Side, went to North High, I'm a Viking, and so have a lot invested in the neighborhood. I am on the other side of the tracks. I'm on the west side of Federal, but only by a few blocks. So spent plenty of time on the east side of Federal. So thanks all for being here. Manny, you want to go next?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Mandy Stevens. I am not a North Sider, but I'm super excited to be a part of this process through the council office. I'm an aide for Councilwoman Sandoval. I primarily handle policy and communications, but I'm excited about this process because I think that at the local level of government, we get to be the most innovative and closest to the ground. I've never, having worked in different levels of government, had the opportunity to speak to this many people that we represent and be able to hear directly from you to shape what is going to be happening and what's coming down the line. So the ability to empower you all, but also be a part of empowering you all is super rewarding. And it's what I like most about my job. So extremely excited. And just to touch on success, there's a Woody Allen quote, 80% of success is showing up. You all have already shown up tonight. and are present. And so thank you for what you're willing to do for your community, because it's incredibly encouraging, and thank you.
And I quickly would like to give a moment to our intern, our summer intern, Kristie, if she wants to say a couple sentences about herself. She is our intern for the summer, and she's helping me in focusing on the neighborhood planning initiative.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristie. I'm 19 and I'm getting my degree in political science and Spanish. So I'm super excited to watch you guys kind of plan out the neighborhood and do all of that. And you should really check out your handbooks. I put a lot of fun resources in them for you. So
Kristie really helped with those. So a lot of credit to Kristie. She's amazing. She's amazing. Thanks. That's it. You're muted, Liz.
Oh, I did it again. Okay, I think we got everybody. Thank you so much. We had, I think almost 200 people fill out the interest form in the end for when we, sent out this call for steering committee members. And, we really tried to get a good group together where we could have a diverse set of perspectives and really have this working relationship together. And I really thank you all for being willing to devote time to this process and help shape that future of your neighborhood. So we're going to give a kind of a short presentation here again, just about what the planning process is, some of that background, and then we want to save time, the second half of the meeting to break out into smaller groups and start to talk about some of issues and opportunities in the neighborhood. So I'm going to try to share my screen again here. Is everyone seeing that?
Yep, it's showing up correctly.
Okay, great. Click. So we're calling this sort of Planning 101, but it's just a brief introduction. We'll spend more time kind of digging into kind of our existing plans that we already have in the city as we move forward, but we just kind of wanted to set that framework. And if some of you have been in some of our presentations that we've given to some of the neighborhood organizations or others, so you might be familiar with this, but we just want to kind of set that level playing field as we start to talk about it. So just at a very big picture, why do we plan? Why do this at all? I think planning provides this very unique opportunity for us to really, and you all touched on this a little bit in your introductions, but to step back and kind of think about that big picture of the community. Sometimes we can kind of get caught up on a very immediate issue and be talking about how we solve that. But this is really kind of that once in a generation really opportunity to talk together about what we want our community to be in that long term. Like, let's look 20 years out and talk about what this place should be like, what parts we want to make sure that we preserve, who we want to make sure can stay in the community, those things like that, what we want to improve, and then come up with those strategies about how we get there. A simple example to think about is like a street in your neighborhood. We might sometimes get caught up talking about like a pothole in that street and how we fix it. But in a planning process, we get to think about like, how does that road function? Does it take us where we want to go? Does it work for everybody that uses it? And talk about those bigger picture pieces. And that's, the opportunity that we get in a planning process. Ultimately, it's a policy document that we're creating. It helps us inform our decision-making going forward. So we have a vision that we'll talk about, we'll hopefully get to, and with involving all of our community members, talk about strategies to get there. And really we set this document forward that then helps inform decisions in the future. So as the city decides where they're going to build, where they're going to do park improvements, these types of plans can help inform that, or where they're going to put affordable housing funding, that type of thing. So on the flip side of that, what plans don't do, because they're policy documents, they don't directly change regulations. They're not a regulatory document. So if you think about a zoning regulation that applies to your site, that's not what the plan is. The plan is that policy document that helps inform that zoning later on. And like I said, it doesn't it doesn't itself establish a budget. It doesn't say we're going to put this much money towards park improvement, but it sets those priorities that then can inform the budget in the future. And we stay pretty high level in terms of, say, a park improvement, a street improvement. This wouldn't be a detailed design of what, every single thing that's going to happen on a street, but at a high level, it might say what those improvements should be. So after plans are adopted, so ultimately this policy document goes to City Council and they make a decision on whether we should adopt it or not. But there are implementing tools that we'll start to think about in this process, and that is regulations that might come from recommendations in the plan. So we might change some of the rules that we have in the city based on recommendations that we make. That funding piece. So again, if we say we make a recommendation to support small businesses and we have some program suggestions for that, that could help inform a future budget process where the city and City Council kind of puts money towards that type of program. And then partnerships. So we know there's, a lot of organizations in the city, in these neighborhoods, there's schools, there are going to be recommendations that the city would do together with organizations in the future. And I think Naomi included this in your handbook, but this is just a diagram kind of showing that, the role that plans play. And the green bubble there is kind of all the different things that the city does. We put budget towards certain types of projects. We have regulations, and it's kind of showing actions that the city might take in the future. And that purple bubble there is showing that these policy documents help inform those actions. So as we make those decisions in the future over the next 20 years, we look back to our plans and we say what those recommendations are. So there's really this opportunity through this neighborhood planning process to put forth that vision, put forth those strategies so that, for these next 20 years, we can look back at that plan and say, well, what did the plan say about this? Or community members can help advocate for particular project improvements that we want to see. And the plan really helps provide that policy guidance. And this diagram here, I was trying to speak to kind of the different types of plans that we have in the city. We do planning at different scales and different levels. The highest one being what we call our comprehensive plan, and that was adopted in 2019. And it's a very high level visionary document that talks, kind of sets out a vision for the city and specific goals on how to get there. And it really is this tying together framework from which we do other plans in the city. And then we have what we call citywide plans. And these tend to be kind of very topic focused. So game plan looks at parks. Housing Inclusive Denver has affordable housing recommendation. We have a series of what we call Denver Moves, which are transportation plans. But so they apply to all of the city, but they look at specific topics. And then the neighborhood plans that we're working on here, the small area plans, have nest under there. And these are more geographically focused. But the benefit of the neighborhood plan is that we look at how all these different things interrelate. So we're not just looking at parks, we're not just looking at land use, how we use our land, or transportation network. We're figuring out how all those things work together. And we want, all these plans need to be kind of consistent with each other. So we're looking to implement our citywide goals, but making sure that that there's strategies that work for these neighborhoods and that we're talking about what that means at the neighborhood level at a very specific focused level. And so Ella's going to give just a little bit of background on our citywide plans and our neighborhood planning process. So I'll let her jump in here.
Great, thank you, Liz. So I'm Ella Stevie. And yeah, so I'm going to start off talking about Blueprint Denver. So Blueprint is Denver's land use and transportation plan. And so the plan includes 3 core elements that we'll be thinking about as we work on the Near Northwest plan. So Blueprint envisions a city that is equitable, one that has complete neighborhoods and networks, and one that is evolving. So the first concept on the next slide is equity. We'll get into a much deeper discussion of this actually in our next meeting. But Blueprint defines equity as meaning everyone, regardless of who they are and where they're from, has the opportunity to thrive. So where there is equity, a person's identity does not determine their outcome. So the plan includes 3 concepts to measure equity. And those are increasing access to opportunity, reducing vulnerability to displacement, and expanding housing and jobs diversity. So in this process, we will look for strategies for how we can address these concepts and improve equity in the Near Northwest area. For example, policies that could integrate equity into this plan might be something like integrating community services and daily amenities into neighborhoods, or ensuring that affordable and diverse housing options are available in every neighborhood. So then on the next slide, Blueprint Denver envisions every neighborhood in the city becoming a complete neighborhood. So that means with its own authentic character and amenities that improve the quality of life, like sidewalks, housing options, transit access, and then things like parks and open space. So this includes networks that give pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and cars a good way to get around. So lastly, we have Blueprint provides guidance on how cities should grow. So this includes expecting every neighborhood to take on some of that growth, while directing most growth towards centers like downtown and along major corridors. So our process will help decide what that growth looks like in the Near Northwest area and how we ensure that it helps meet community goals. So on the next slide, while we're working on the Near Northwest Area Plan, the city is already working on implementing many of these citywide policies from Blueprint Denver. So several of them are listed here. We'll provide a lot more background on these in future meetings, but throughout our process, we'll need to make sure we're closely coordinated with these Blueprint recommendations and projects. So on the next slide, I want to talk about the neighborhood planning process. So the diagram that Liz showed had neighborhoods and small area plans as another layer of planning below our citywide plans. So they provide more detailed recommendations that only apply to specific areas. They address many topics and show how the different systems interrelate in that specific area. They customize recommendations, but they can't contradict the citywide plans. So then on the next slide, through the plan, we will have the opportunity in the Near Northwest to do several things. So one of them is making updates to the maps that are in Blueprint. For example, through this process, we might find that, or the community might find that, for example, there are areas where the community would like to see a new neighborhood shopping area or have more housing options than what is currently kind of the policy direction that's mapped in Blueprint. So as part of this process, we'll have the opportunity to assess that and then update Blueprint based on what this plan finds. The plan will provide more guidance for use in city decisions, such as whether a rezoning is appropriate. And then the plan will also recommend capital projects like park improvements or program improvements, such as support for small businesses. So on the next slide, in 2016, the city completed a strategic plan for neighborhood planning. The goal of this plan is to give every neighborhood in Denver the benefit of a neighborhood plan. To accomplish this in a reasonable amount of time, and that, I mean that compared to, I think when we evaluated if we'd continued as we had been doing, it would have taken something like 85 years. So planning is a long-term process, but to do that in a more reasonable amount of time, we've grouped neighborhoods together. So the first phase is shown in kind of darker purple, was completed between 2019 and 2020. And then the Near Northwest is part of phase 2. So you may be wondering what the plan will actually look like in the end. So Liz is going to give an overview of the process, but this slide gives you an idea of the topics that we plan to cover. So this includes the long-term vision, and then it has recommendations for topics such as land use, housing, and transportation. So we'll have a section for each neighborhood with their unique recommendations, and we'll also have recommended priorities for implementation. And then we'll leave room in the process to allow for focused topics to be decided by the community. So this may be a key issue that we hear frequently from the community members that and one that needs to have kind of more resources and dedicate more recommendations to in the plan. So that, again, will all be guided by the input that we get from the community in this process. So before I hand this back to Liz, I just wanted to pause and see if anybody has any questions at this point.
This is Leslie Twarogowski. I have a brief question. Knowing that you had to put the boundary somewhere, obviously the boundary of this plan cuts right through Federal Boulevard. And I'm wondering if there is some verbiage within Blueprint Denver that will allow Federal, you know, with this plan, we'll have near Northwest. I don't know when far Northwest is coming, but is there verbiage so that Federal doesn't come out, you know, looking like two different, you know, one side of the street looks like it was planned 10 years at a different time than the other side of the street?
That is a great question. I think there was a lot of debate on how we grouped the neighborhoods together for near Northwest. And I think we absolutely think we will talk about both sides of Federal in this process, and that we wouldn't kind of force a conversation about one side of the street without the other. So I think there is some flexibility on how we kind of draw that line in the end. And I think that we want to have that conversation. It doesn't mean that there won't be some revisiting when we get to the other side about, you know, how are things going and how is that plan guidance playing out. But I think we'll expect that we would talk about Federal as both sides of the street.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. Can you give an example of things that maybe could potentially come up that would contradict the larger plan that you talked about? Like, I'm thinking of one, like if we wanted to recommend that a neighborhood that's only zoned for single family housing has the potential to be zoned for multi-family housing units, is that a contradictory thing or is that not? I'm just kind of confused on what that means.
I think actually one that jumps to mind is kind of the opposite of that, where communities say we only want to ever stay single unit residential through the whole thing. And that is taken too far, that could become in conflict with Blueprint Denver's growth, that actually all neighborhoods need to be able to absorb some growth. And there's a lot of the conversation is about, you know, it being an appropriate for the area, but to say, no, we don't want any growth could be contradictory to that.
How do we deal with conflicts like we may think we've already done as much big growing as we can, and how do we grow better small?
I think that's the exact kind of conversation we want to have about, it's the how, right? How do we accommodate growth? How do we make sure it kind of meets our other goals that we'll talk through this process? So it's not a one size fits all, and that means that we need to, you know, grow with towers or something of that sort, but it's, you know, how do we best meet those goals that we'll set forth, and we'll talk about that vision and the things that we're trying to preserve or that are important. And then ideally and I think we all know there'll be some difficult conversations about how we get there and how do we get to those recommendations. But I think there's hopefully creative solutions out there about how we can meet multiple goals at once. Okay. How about we move to the next one, and we'll have more opportunities for questions as well. I just want to make sure we leave time for our activity. So I wanted to give an overview on the planning process and then touch base on our steering committee roles and responsibilities. And I think you all have seen the document that we sent to you, but I'll kind of highlight some of those roles here, and happy to answer any questions or thoughts that you all have on those. So this diagram here explains at a simplified level the planning process, and we do expect that this will take about 18 to 24 months, so likely wrapping up kind of early 2023. So we're all kind of in it for the long haul here, and we're Now, at that very beginning of the process is what we call kind of understanding the area. And it's really that listening of what do people like about their neighborhoods today? What are they worried about? What are the things that they see as a great opportunity for the future? And really just kind of reaching as many people as possible and kind of listening to them and kind of identifying those issues. At the same time, we kind of, from like a data perspective, we look at kind of technical research about what are the issues, like what, for example, crashes happen in like involving pedestrians in the area. What is like, how many people are having trouble affording their housing costs, those types of things. We'll kind of marry those together about what we're hearing from people and what those technical issues are in that first phase. And then we kind of work through, you'd say is like an iterative process to start to define those issues and develop recommendations. So what is that vision after kind of hearing everybody? Let's think through what our future looks like and put together that vision. And then we start to develop those recommendations that get us there. And we kind of see these in phases where we have a great deal of community engagement happening at each of these phases. So we've heard from people, we start to establish that vision. We talk to people about whether sounds like we're getting that right in terms of what those issues and the vision is. And then we work through the refining those recommendations. And then eventually we do have a draft of the plan that we get feedback on. And then the final step in this is the adoption process. So this goes both to our planning board and to city council for consideration for it to become kind of that official policy document. So we'll be looking towards all of you to help us with that engagement piece through each of these steps, and also kind of helping us filter that feedback of what we're hearing and how we balance kind of different perspectives that we're hearing, and helping us if we want to be very intentional about our engagement and making sure that we're hearing from particularly underrepresented groups and talking with you all about how we make improvements to that engagement process as we go through. So in terms of our team, we do have what we call interdepartmental team. So the community planning and development department kind of leads the process, and that's myself, Ella, Edson, and then Cortland. So you'll be seeing us all throughout the process. You can, our names are on the website. You can reach out to us at any point. And then we have a number of other team members from our transportation and infrastructure department, parks, housing, public health and environment, and economic and development opportunity, who are part of our team, and they'll kind of come to these meetings at some points to kind of talk about issues that relate to these departments or ongoing projects that they're working on. And they're really an extension of our team through the process. We also will be hiring a consultant team. That contract is in process, but we'll have them come to future meetings. They really act as an extension of our staff team. They help us with much for the technical analysis that we'll be doing, and they also help with community engagement. And they will also be helping us facilitate some of our conversations going forward. And then as Naomi mentioned at the beginning, we do also have a very close coordination with Councilwoman Sandoval's office, and she's been a great partner and will continue to be as we move forward. And then we see the steering committee is also an extension of that team as well. And you all act as an advisory group. That, as I mentioned, we see you as representing this diverse set of community interests. So bringing those different perspectives to the table. You're really, others in the community might not be able to, participate as regularly as you all would be. So you're really seen as that constant participation point throughout the process. We'll meet regularly. Typically, that's one meeting per month. That we wouldn't go over 2 hours for that. But that, we can work with the committee on when that meeting happens and how often that happens, but that's the typical meeting time frame. And your role really is, one on engagement piece. So help us spread awareness, help us connect with community members, advise us on that process piece. So, how we're going about engagement, how we can better reach out to people. You'll help us sort of as a sounding board as we're going through this process and helping us generate ideas as we try to get to recommendations as we develop that vision being that brainstorming or playing that brainstorming role. And then helping us synthesize that feedback. So we will hear different points of view throughout this process. But our goal is to try to seek consensus. And so we're asking you all to try to take on those different perspectives and think about that vision and our goals as we make decisions about recommendations. And I'm not going to read through all of these, but they're in the document that we sent to all of you. But we want to make sure that this is a place where everybody feels comfortable in these meetings. We'll try as much as possible not to use a lot of jargon. You can call us out on that for speaking in plenarese or too many acronyms. You can definitely everyone should feel comfortable to have, speak their mind about what they're feeling. And we really want that collaborative spirit to happen within these meetings. And then, helping us embrace all those perspectives that are in the community. We'll bring these up at our meetings as we go forward, but I think as we have conversations, we just want to make sure that we make room for everyone to speak, and that we're respectful of everyone's time. We're gonna, and if we do have disagreements, try to focus on the idea, not a person, but just be respectful there. So any questions kind of on that steering committee process, and we'll go a little bit more into community engagement next, and then hopefully wrap up for our activity. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody begin. You can have time again at the end, but let's jump into our community engagement strategy. So we've started to draft a plan of how we're going to kind of reach out to the community, and we're going to share that draft with you. But Edson was going to present here for a few minutes just to give you kind of the outline version of that strategy, and you'll see it in more detail. Edson, did you want to jump in?
Yeah. So hey everyone, through this process, we want to ensure that we are intentional about how we reach out to the community and involve them through the process. So therefore, we're putting together this draft engagement strategy that outlines how we will go about reaching people. And the strategy includes basically three main elements. It lays out the goals for engagement. It describes specifically what we will do to reach those goals, and describes how we will track progress by reaching those goals, so we can make sure we're reaching everyone through this process. As well as the strategy lays out some goals for the process. So next slide. We want to make sure that we engage with people who are representative of the demographics of the area, as well as we specifically want to empower those who are typically left out of the city processes. And we want the planning process to help build trust and expand the knowledge base of the community around the planning and city government. And so next slide. And so we need to understand the demographics of the area to understand how we should go about reaching people. And so the near northwest area includes 4 neighborhoods, which is just about 4 square miles with a total population of 27,950. And next slide, so when we're looking at a population breakdown, Sunnyside and Highland are home to most of the residents, and there are more renters in the area than owners. Next slide. And so the predominant race and ethnicities in the area are white, and right behind them is the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community. And Chaffee Park and Sunnyside are the most diverse neighborhoods when you start breaking this down even by neighborhoods. Next slide. And so 8% of the residents do not speak English well. And so with this percentage, like there's a 12% in Jefferson Park and Sunnyside. So we need to pay special attention to provide translation and interpretation to ensure that we can reach these community members. Next slide. And so in terms of age, the largest groups are in the 20 to 39 year range. And then something that I want to highlight as well is that 70% of the community members are 19 or younger as well. So youth engagement will be an important strategy to consider here. This graph shows household incomes in the area, and 36% of residents make less than $50,000 a year. And so we need to reach these community members to make sure the plan addresses their needs. And next slide. So we started to identify a list of underrepresented groups that we need to reach during this process. And so here's some ideas that and how to reach them. So for example, like we've been focusing on youth, and we've already started doing some outreach in Denver Montessori High School and doing some outreaches with some of their classes. But Tim, we definitely want to reach out with you and get connected there. And we'll also love to hear more about other marginalized groups that we're missing in this list, such as seniors, residents, lower income residents, single and working parents, and like what kind of ideas that you have about engaging those groups. Next slide. And so there are also special considerations that we're starting to think about. That includes an R&O leadership group that has already been meeting regularly, and we could continue to coordinate with them throughout the process. Also, a lack of business organizations in most areas outside of the federal bid. And so we anticipate we'll need some like strategies to reach those businesses. And we'll also know that there's a number of religious institutions that are the heart of the community. And so we want to set up some strategies to engage with them as well. But more than anything, what we're looking for is that, are there other considerations that we should think about? And we definitely want to know. And then next slide is the engagement strategy will also continue to outline these types of tools that will reach these people. So we're offering many different options so that people can pick what works best for them. And also putting in an extra effort to reach underrepresented groups. And so this slide lists the types of tools we'll use to include traditional meetings, online surveys, in-person and pop-up events, such as like a bus stop or a summer concert or movie at the park. And we would love to hear your thoughts on what kind of tools we should consider. And so next slide. And at this point, we just want to open up with any questions. I think that, no, next one's community kickoff. You guys.
Thank you, Edson. We'll take questions after this. Let me just quickly go over what we're thinking for our community kickoff. I think most of you should have received a save the date for a virtual community kickoff on July 27th. And that's really just one aspect of what we see as this first phase of the project, where we really want to hear from people and do mostly listening. So in terms of kind of this starting of the process, we're thinking, there's some goals that we're looking to. One being understanding how the community views the area. What do they like? What do they dislike? What are they worried about? And what would they like to see in the future? And really just have those conversations with people. Start to identify what those major issues are that need improvement. We want input on that engagement strategy. So Edson gave a brief overview of that, but we want to put that out there and get feedback directly from the community and from you all about how people want to be engaged and what the most effective way to do that is. And there is also this education piece about what the planning process is, what a plan is, and getting people to kind of start participating in the process. And so one aspect of this is what, through the pandemic, we kind of got forced at one point to start doing more virtual meetings. And that was really our only option. But there was some benefit we think, to the online piece. For some people, it's easier for them to kind of join a meeting from their home, not have to get childcare or figure out or transportation to get to a place, and they can still do that virtual meeting. So we think there's some benefit to keeping that as part of our process, but only one part of it, right? And we also are planning to do an online survey. So that's another way that people can join online and share about their community on their own time. And then also do a number of outdoor events. So we're starting to plan what we call pop-ups, but it's, we can be out in the community, at local parks, at events that are already happening in the community. So we'd love to hear from you all, and you can send us things after this meeting about what events you already know are happening and what things we can go to and kind of talk to people in person about the planning process. And then we will start doing kind of interviews with stakeholders and starting some of that focused engagement, like the youth engagement is one piece of that. So any questions on this before we kind of break out into groups for more discussion. I think Nola, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was wondering, and maybe this is something that we do later on, but that all that data that was shared, could we also look at that data over time?
Yep.
Like in the past, how those demographics have changed, I think would be interesting.
Yeah, and that's a very great point. I think for engagement, we're trying to get at least knowing who's here now that we're trying to reach and where they are, but that's a very good point on understanding that those patterns and what's happened over time in the neighborhoods.
When are we going to get the 2020 census data that we can incorporate?
That's a good, it does take them some time to process that. I could find out on that. Those numbers are 2019 numbers, and that's from the American Community Survey. So that's not an exact count, but it gets into more detail. And those are the most recent numbers that we have right now.
Hey, Liz.
Yeah.
Just to answer that question, we're currently working with the redistricting group, and the tentative date for census data release is September 30th. It's typically April, but pandemic has delayed that, but just so you have that information.
Thank you, Manny. Okay, let's jump to our exercise, because I want to make sure that we give people some time to get talking and stop listening to all of us.
Hey, Liz.
Oh, yeah.
I got
sorry, I
got a
didn't
question.
see you, Tripy.
No, that's no worries. So along with what the data that Nola was talking about, I saw some of the slides where it was combined versus neighborhood specific. Could we get some of those same things at the neighborhood level? And then also the presentation you're sharing now, are all of these presentations going to be available online for everyone, but especially us, because we may have to start talking and sharing some of this? So just that,
yes,
okay.
We will be sure to post all presentations, and to the extent these are virtual meetings, we'll post the video as well online. So anybody that wants to go back and watch that can do that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so we wanted to give people some time to do some more talking and starting to talk about the area. And so we are going to break out into groups and sort of do, and I sent these questions ahead of time, but these are the types of questions that we're asking the broader community. And Tripy, I love your background. I just noticed you got the Sunnyside neighborhood plan. That's a whole nother thing. We have to look at kind of our older plans and what we want to carry forward. But we'll get to that, but I like that. So yeah, this is, a preview of the types of questions we'll be asking the larger community, very open-ended in terms of, what do you like about the area? What do you dislike? What are your ideas? And oftentimes this is where we can hear the most from everybody in the community, because it is open-ended, and we just want to hear how what they feel about their community and start to kind of see those themes come out. And we'll be working with all of you to kind of process everything we're hearing, but we wanted to kind of get everybody's juices flowing and have these conversations together. So I think Ella's going to break us up into groups. We probably could spend we had about half an hour, Ella, am I doing that math right? As a group, and start to talk about these questions here. And then we'll come back together at about 7:45 and just highlight anything you want to say that your group talked about, and then we'll spend a few minutes talking about next steps. So Ella, did you want to?
Yes, so just technical steps. I'm going to send you all, you've been randomly assigned to 103 rooms. Liz is going to be in what's called room 1, Edson will be in room 2, and I will join room 3. So this is just so we can have smaller groups and actually all chime in and talk about this stuff. So I'm going to click a button that says open all rooms. That you'll get a notification on your screen. So you're just going to click OK, and that will send you to the breakout room. So we're going to come back here for to have one person from each of the groups share just a kind of summary of what you all talked about. and then some next steps and closing remarks. So I'm gonna send us all back at 7:45. I've set myself an alarm for 7:40 to give a 5-minute warning for that. So you'll all get a notification, and then in the same way that you're sent to the rooms, you'll be brought back to this one. I will keep an eye on if anyone gets stranded, but yeah, you should just need to accept your invite. So I'll see you all back here, but I'll see room 3 shortly. All right. Thank you all for joining room 3. I need to bring up my little progress. I'm sorry, I have to also keep track of whether people are moving. Looks like they're almost all there. Yeah, thank you all for chiming in here. Welcome to, last but not least, group 3. So I'm gonna just share my screen. I want to just step through this exercise with you guys. Please feel free to chime in. You know, we're a smaller group, so you're welcome to raise your hand, but you don't have to. You can just unmute and share your thoughts. So I'm just going to pull up this exercise, or sorry, share my screen to kind of guide our exercise here. And okay. Are you guys seeing this? Understand the area? Great. Okay. So annoyingly, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see all of you. So if you're like gesturing and I'm not responding, it's because I don't see you. So please just unmute and interrupt me. So what we want to do is record the kind of thoughts from this group based on likes, dislikes, and big ideas. We don't have to really strictly stick to these different categories. I think it's just a helpful framework to start to think about the dynamics in your neighborhoods. So the likes are things that you like most about the area, things that are working well. Dislikes are what are your biggest concerns about the area, and what are you worried may threaten the quality of life in the future. And then, you know, big ideas, like what are your big ideas to improve the area? What's missing that would make it a better place to live? And then what are you hopeful for over the next 10 to 20 years? So I personally like to kind of step through in that order. I think it's helpful to start on a positive note and then dig into some of the challenges and then end on some potential solutions or you know, just the big ideas for the future. However, I don't want to constrain you guys all to that. So how this works is I will just click a pin here, and then I can put, if it's at a specific location, I can put that, and then I'll type in whatever you all say. So I'm just going to do, well, I'm going to put them right outside if it's for the whole area, and I'm just going to say group 3 test just to see. So we get back. So now we'll be able to get all this data by, we can see the areas and the colors and then click on them to see what the actual content was. So that's not very exciting. So I'm going to delete that one. But yeah, I just want to open it up to any of you, likes, dislikes, big ideas, whatever it is. I will be your scribe. I will take down your ideas. Since we can't all be around the table right now, writing our own stickies. I am your virtual sticky maker. So yeah, what do you all think? And this is open to anybody. We you know, it's not limited to just steering committee members. So anyone who has thoughts or yeah, want to throw out examples.
I have a like. I like Zunai Park, and I would include like all the parks in our neighborhood, our combined neighborhoods.
Is this what you're calling Zunai Park? Just
yeah. Oh yeah, that's it, right? Yeah.
Yes, and just because I was corresponding with another city official, and this was called the unnamed park, and I was like, no,
it's not. It has.
So that would be a good thing. Okay, so what is there anything specific that you like about it?
I like that it's big. I like that it is in our neighborhood, at least, it's the only place that has really lovely, wonderful walkable sidewalks. I know that's not true south of the highway, but we have these little itty bitty guys that are not very fun to walk on with more than one person. And it's just, I think it provides a great community space. People play baseball there, there's soccer games there, there's t-ball there, people have parties there all the time. I think I just saw a random family having like a huge kickball game. So it's a good like community focus for our neighborhood, I think. It's one of the only gathering spaces that we really have up here. So yeah.
I'm just gonna, this is so many ideas. I'm giving it two different.
I talk a lot.
No, this is great. Honestly, the worst thing about this is if no one says anything, and then I just awkwardly sit here trying to tell jokes. So much better that you all are speaking, because my jokes are not good. All right, and then generally, you said just the parks in general. Is there anything that you'd want to add that you didn't mention about that one?
No. Okay. I just didn't want to leave out. I utilize the other parks too, south of the highway, so I didn't want to like leave them out. But
okay,
that's the one I go to the most.
Okay, great. Other thoughts?
I have one dislike.
Okay.
I guess this goes into like, what are your concerns? For me would probably be grocery stores. The only one that is accessible to me is the Save-A-Lot. So I really like Save-A-Lot, and I like the prices, and a lot of people in my neighborhood that are lower income go there a lot. But that's pretty much it for us. There's another like grocery store on 38th. It was where the Save-A-Lot used to be, 38th and Clay.
Okay.
But that one is like really expensive. Like a lot of people that live around my neighborhood, they've told me like they don't even go there because it's like prices are crazy. So yeah, I think that's one of my concerns, like just being able to have grocery stores around, especially for the elderly, because I take my grandma and I take some of her friends when I go out to Save-A-Lot. So it's not really accessible to, there's not a lot of grocery stores accessible to people, especially the elderly.
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge. And one of the things we will be looking at as part of this plan. All right, other thoughts?
I wanted to add walkability as a like. I mean, it goes for the parks, but I do like the neighborhood amenities, like, commercial corridors where you can go have breakfast, lunch, or get a haircut. Things are within walking distance of your home. Pretty accessible.
Is there a specific corridor that you, or just kind of generally throughout the area?
I think, I definitely like 44th and Tejon, between Zuni and Tejon. I do think that there's room for continued commercial development on Tejon in about 42nd. I also think a little bit closer to Federal on 44th, there's still a lot of commercial spaces that are empty or been around for a long time. But
I'm going to put opportunity for new commercial activity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you also mentioned that I got the kind of 44th, but then you also mentioned on,
I think like 42nd and I mean that whole corridor on Tejon there. I think that there's commercial stuff going on there. Coffee shops and restaurants, and from entrepreneurs that even grew up in the community. I think it's great.
All right, thank you.
I think this is more specific to my neighborhood, but I live near the rail station, so that's something I do like, although I do recognize that bus stops or bus routes don't go through particular neighborhoods, and so they might not be easily accessible to to certain communities, but like everyone here, I think the parks are fantastic. The grocery store situation is also somewhat problematic. You can get guacamole at Lever's, the one on Clay and 38th for like $6 or something like that, right? And so not the most affordable prices. And the walkability is great. But I think with everything here though, I think it's almost like it's half baked, right? It's like there's a lot of good, but there's also it's not there just yet. Like as Ramon just mentioned, the 44th business area, there's some great shops and also businesses there, but there's a lot of empty fronts there. So I feel like it's like a neighborhood or an area that's almost there, but still needs some work. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. And then I didn't capture what you said at the beginning about living near the rail station and transit. What category would you, not to make you put it in a box, but I just want to make sure I accurately record that.
Yeah, so I live near the 41st and Fox station in Sunnyside, so I like that. It's kind of interesting that the demographic around here has kind of changed, so you get a bump in the 20 to 29 age demographic, which means speeding cars in the neighborhood. But so yeah, but I like being near the transit station because I can get to work from that rail station. But in terms of, I know the bus system, the bus route system is pretty good, but it doesn't go through every neighborhood.
Okay.
I would piggyback, I guess, off of that, is saying that's an opportunity for growth of can we increase bus routes through that area? Can we make it more connected to other parts of the community? I think I know how to ride my bike there. I definitely don't know how to get public transportation there. So yeah, that's an area that I totally agree that's an area that could be improved drastically. And I know it's still growing, but.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think this bridge here is such a big asset. And I think there's a lot that could be done to leverage that. I think that'll be a really interesting conversation, but then also, obviously there's not, a bus isn't going to go over that. So how you kind of work out the, non-pedestrian networks on both sides so that they're more complete around the very real barrier.
I have one more transportation in terms of connectivity. Can I add that in?
Sure.
So I think a dislike is the underpasses that we have to connect a Chafee Park to the other parts of the neighborhoods. The Zuni one it's just not super pedestrian friendly. And then the roundabouts have a lot of good pedestrian infrastructure sort of built into it, but cars don't really acknowledge it. I think everyone is learning how to navigate those roundabouts as pedestrians and as cars. But I think those are huge areas of opportunity in terms of trying to connect the neighborhoods to improving that walkability, improving the transit, improving that space. I'm also petrified or nervous or worried. I live 7 houses north of the highway, and I'm worried that what Nola referenced happening in Globeville and Elaria Swansea is going to happen in our neighborhood, and the impact it's going to have in 15, 20 years. That's not a hopeful, that's a worry of what's coming down as I-70 develops. So
I guess what exact dynamic are you worried about?
Yeah, so they'll just try to expand the highway or sink the highway like they did, and they'll use eminent domain to take our houses, or they won't listen to, and I don't know all the ins and outs of what happened with the dig project, where they put 70 underground in Globeville area, Swansea, but it was a thought when I bought this house of what could potentially happen in the future. Those viaducts, those overpasses need help. They look like they're falling apart. So like something has to happen there. And I'm worried it's gonna impact this neighborhood in a negative way where we may lose our homes or won't be heard or listened to or be displaced because of the expanding of a highway.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna stop talking because like I said, I talk a lot, so.
That's all right. Yeah, thank you. All right. Other thoughts?
One thing I do like about this neighborhood is the mixed housing.
Okay.
You know,
any particular part of it, or would you say the?
Yeah, well, we live maybe 3 blocks away from Quig Newton, and so I do like that there are different types of kind of housing in the neighborhood. You know, single house or duplexes, condos, or Quig Newton as well. And so I do kind of like the mix. And having lived in Oakland for about 8 years, it's something that I really appreciated, having that kind of socioeconomic diversity in a neighborhood. And so yeah, that's one thing I do appreciate about this area. And one of my worries is that we might lose that socioeconomic diversity.
Yeah, I think I can add to that. I think one of the biggest things that I'm concerned about is gentrification. I grew up here, so compared to 10 years ago, like this whole community was like primarily Latino, and now like it's crazy. I right next to the projects, and it's just nuts. Like a lot of people that I grew up with, they had to move out because it's so expensive. Like people, like the house that's next to me, like it's selling for like a huge amount. So I mean, the people that were native or like the elderly, they can't afford to live here. Like I live in my dad's house. I won't be able to stay in this neighborhood. I think that's what I'm worried about. Like a lot of the stuff that used to be here. I remember it used to be Servicios de la Raza was around Chaffee Park. A lot of stuff that it's just different now, and it's kind of sad. I like that we're expanding, but also it's just sad that we're pushing everyone out.
Yes, absolutely. What, see, I'm just gonna zoom out. We actually have a pretty good mix, I think, of likes and dislikes. And there have been some like general area ones that I've dropped up here. Do we have anyone from Highland or Jefferson Park here? This might have been a poor random allocation that just didn't get us that geography, but I'm wondering if anyone has thoughts for down here.
You know, I walk down there. You know, I live off of 39th and Bryant, so it's I end up spending time over on 32nd as well. One thing that as a dislike is we do have in the commercial corridors landscaping that was attempted, or not attempted, but it was done probably 20 years ago, and the trees have either died or outgrown, I guess, the planting or the growth boxes that they built for them, and so they tend to be a safety hazard, where sometimes there's just a big gaping hole where a tree was, and the city really hasn't done anything to fix that. And so you can easily, fall in there. And if they plant trees, I mean, you should maintain the trees, should have them trimmed. And if you have decorative lighting that's supposed to light up a corridor, I mean, they should be maintained.
Ramon, are you talking a lot too on 38th as well?
Yeah.
That has 2 local maintenance districts, and Leslie can probably even speak to this a little bit as the federal bid person, but so those properties go into a local maintenance district kind of willingly. They decide to self-tax themselves for these improvements and for the lighting. And specifically along 38th, I mean, I've been in the office 5 years, we've struggled getting them to raise their self-tax enough so that all this maintenance can be done. So it was like a good idea 20 years ago, but they're one of the lower fees per square foot in any other district throughout the city. So it's a huge struggle. The amount of money they have and the amount of money that's needed to fix lighting and trees, there's, I think, don't quote me on it, but I mean, it was at least $80,000 gap. I mean, it was huge. So that's one of those things that it's actually, we as the city can't just go and do it because it's theirs. They own it and they're supposed to maintain it. But that is a problem we have with some of the maintenance districts. And I don't know, Leslie, if you want to tag off of that.
I'm happy to. Am I on mute? No, I'm on mute.
No, you're good.
So at least on the portion of the federal bid that is within our boundaries, it is our job to maintain the trees. Now I have an asterisk on that. Federal Boulevard was built as a parkway. And so in the median, that's actually not our job to maintain the trees in the median. It's our job to maintain the trees in the right of way on either side of the street. And so maybe one of the things that might be considered as a recommendation for this plan is some bond money or some CIP money for parks to upgrade and take better care of the medians, because not just on Federal, but Morrison Road, Alameda, those are the spots where Park says, I'm sorry, we don't have money for that this year. And they've been saying that for 20 years now. So maybe that is a way that we can look at upgrading the trees within the median, if not the right of way. But I want to tag on, because I know that we are running quickly out of time. It's almost 7:45. I want to start with some good news. During COVID, in the federal bid, we lost only 2 businesses and we gained 4. 4 new businesses opened in the federal bid. Federal is an economic engine that is running very well, but one of the interesting things that has happened over the last few years as a result of the Blueprint Denver of 2001, Jefferson Park was designated as an area of change, and it changed. In that case, the plan worked. But what happened was it went from being a community of people of color to a white community. It's all white people. And so one of the things in this plan that I hope for, what wasn't considered in the Blueprint of 2001, everyone was so invested in what the buildings would look like that they didn't consider necessarily who would be inhabiting those buildings. And so that's something that I hope that this plan will address. And just briefly to wrap it up, when I look at what I would consider success or failure, 20 years from now, if we've lost all of our independently owned businesses and Federal is just a boulevard of Chipotle's and Starbucks, I will have failed, and in my opinion, we will have failed. Again, the diversity of the businesses really adds a lot of character and importance to the neighborhood. And my final point is this, we have also lost a lot of what was affordable housing for employees. Say you're a dishwasher or a wait staff, you can't afford to live in Jefferson Park anymore. And so our businesses are having a harder and harder time finding employees who live nearby, who are likely to stay employees for the long haul, because their travel time's getting longer and longer and longer. And with that, I think I'll stop. Although I do want to add too, we've lost, I too grew up here in the city and county of Denver. We used to have bodegas, little tiendas, little markets in every neighborhood. Those are gone. Now we've got a Safeway, and all the money goes out, to a corporate, out of state. And that's too bad, because further south on South Federal, you see community owned grocery stores. And I think that's very important for keeping the community together. And sorry for the rant, just had to get it all out there before 7:45.
No, thank you so much for ranting. This is exactly what we want. And I saw the question in the chat just now. I think we would, if not this exact same survey there or the same exercise, we'll definitely be sharing. We're developing a more nuanced survey that will go out to the community, and obviously you guys will be the first to see that. So if not this exact exercise, then yes, you'll definitely have time to sit. I mean, I know I'm someone who I need to like mull things over for a little while before I can just throw out like fully formed ideas. So I certainly benefit from having time with my computer to like click through, zoom in on the map. So yes, you will have the opportunity to do that for sure. That's going to be a really important input. We have time for a couple more ideas, but I do, I hope you all got it, the little message that we have 5 minutes left. Is there someone here who, you guys have all heard me talk too much, including in the main group. So is there someone here who wants to report back just some kind of big ideas or a sampling of what we talked about in this group? I can't see you all, so I can't read your expressions.
I think Emily's eyes lit up at the opportunity to speak to the entire group. See, Emily, you can learn from me for the next time. Don't wait and be quiet. Just throw somebody else under the bus. I do it in the office all the time. I'm like, oh, Naomi wants to do that. Mandy wants to do that. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. I nominate Emily. Oh. Does anybody disagree? Oh.
I second the Emily suggestion.
Right, it's been, I have a first, I have a move, I have a second. I don't know. It sounds like a good plan.
Okay. Can I add one more thing? I guess it's just a nomination. I think Leslie's point about affordability in general, I think is like the whole neighborhood. And I think Sheila, you made this point too, for sure. Like everywhere. I mean, a house around sold for $500,000, which is like nuts. It's like 1,000 square feet. I like can't believe it. And that happened. I moved here into this neighborhood 3 years ago, and there's no way I could have bought my house for $500,000. And in 3 years, like that happened. And I used to live at 32nd and Bryant 8 years ago, and like, there's no way homes were selling for $500,000 8 years ago. So I think that's as a whole.
Yes, I put it in the center to encapsulate the whole. Great. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna send us all back. So I'll see you in the main room. And Emily, thank you for accepting your voluntold status.
Thank you for volunteering, Emily. We will all be in good spirit.
And you guys can just hit leave breakout room.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about Nancy. I'm sorry, particularly that you got cut off there at the end of our,
no, it's okay.
Our discussion. I hope all the groups had a great discussion going on, and we probably could have had that go on for another hour or so. So that was a good conversation going, and that's just the beginning, I'd say, of our talks around all of this. So we wanted to give just a little bit of time if anybody from your room wanted to highlight things you heard or just some of the themes from either likes, dislikes, or big ideas that came out of your room. Feel free to jump in. We didn't actually assign anybody in our room, but so I'll speak for our room if no one else wants to jump in.
Well, I think Edson can speak for our room too.
And we had I was careful to have that conversation in our room. So we do have a volunteer from room 3.
Okay, do you want to start there? Who's from room 3?
Sure, yeah, Emily.
All right, I was volunteered. We talked about a lot of things. Most of our participants were in the Sunnyside Chafee Park neighborhood, but we talked about liking parks, liking some of the diversity of income that exists within our community, the diversity of housing options. Some dislikes were, also liking, the light rail station at Fox. So like accessibility of that transit. Some dislikes were affordability. We talked about that at the end, just kind of in general, it being a hard place to afford to live for anybody and how quickly that has risen in our neighborhoods. Other dislikes were accessibility to a grocery store. Yeah, we had a really good conversation about a lot of things. Some small business, like the upkeep of streets and kind of business thoroughfares, and how we could, like, what are the avenues to improve that? And then also just like the displacement. And I really appreciate Sheila brought up a few times the elderly. It's a topic of or a population that I sometimes forget. And so I liked that she brought that up many times, and keeping that, just that voice in the conversation. I think that's it.
Great, thanks.
Anyone
Emily.
else? Yeah.
Anyone else from group 3 wanted to jump in with anything? Okay.
Liz, I could say a couple things from group 1, if that's possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, clearly one of the things we loved was the diversity that's still in the neighborhoods. The architecture that came a lot from Highland, but it's true in the others as well. The downside, of course, then was losing that architectural diversity. There's a fear of, safety issues, crime, and that kind of stuff. But generally, there seemed to be a sense of hope that what we're going to do can maybe enhance diversity, can slow change and or help, but can improve. Clearly, that's why we're here. What did I forget, Liz?
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of the themes there at the end. It sounds like group 3 talked about it too, sort of the a lot of the likes is also the diversity of people, right? And that strong Chicano history that we have in these neighborhoods, and how we can make sure that residents are able to stay long-term. I think Nancy talked about Beach Court Elementary and families having to leave the neighborhood. And so how can we make sure that this is a place where people can stay long-term? And Tripy talked to kind of the potential here that we can discuss and address issues in a multifaceted way, right? Like how do all these systems work together is a great opportunity for the future. Okay, so Edson's group 2, I guess that one.
Anyone want to share?
We kind of just sat there in silence. No, man, I can hop in and give just a quick summary, and I'm sure Nita could probably do a better job than me, a much more colorful job than me. I'll give her credit where it's due. Man, we talked about a lot of the similar issues, talking about elderly folks, making sure that we have resources and systems and spaces. We talked about opportunities and food deserts, environmental things going on, right? Specifically about how there's not even really a bodega or really any other places. Nita was telling us about how even small local businesses who provide similar sources to a grocery store like really thrived in the pandemic, and in a way that like was really interesting in their business model. Juan gave us some awesome notes about business infrastructure and how and had some good conversations about how we can build systems of transportation and business that work together to provide things like housing. Because I think everybody here knows, right, that housing and affordability of housing is the biggest issue facing our barrio. That just means that we have to come up with creative solutions for that. We talked about teacher pay and how, that's really influential to the ways in which we interact in a neighborhood too. Talked about young folks needing space, right? Youth-oriented spaces here, especially with 17% being young folks. North High School students complaining that there's nowhere to eat around the school except for the subway that nobody wants to go to. And so like, good infrastructure things. We talked about transportation in terms of Nita hates traffic, in case you didn't hear that. Making sure that we're building transportation systems that are sustainable for traffic as well. I also put in a point at the very end that I think this area of Denver has the most unique exits, highways I've ever seen. Like, I think that they're so different, like compared to everywhere else, and people that have been there for a while, like maybe understand how to do them. Like I grew up around here, right? Like I grew up on the north side, so I've been used to it, but Spear, North and South, 20th Street, 38th, Park Ave, like all those are really difficult exits for people that don't know where they go. And so I think people interact in really interesting ways in our neighborhood. So did I miss anything, group?
Business services.
Go ahead, Juan, you got it.
We talked a little bit about, like, you know, some of the businesses in North Denver, you know, you could classify as a disadvantaged business because they don't have the resources to compete with some of the larger entities that are moving into the neighborhood, and, you know, creating some sort of, you know, either providing services to them specifically, or the neighborhood, you know, kind of creating a district that promoted them through, you know, all the different social media platforms, and, you know, sort of creating, you know, that kind of, you know, Greenpoint, you know, Williamsburg type vibe that New York did, that really, you know, kind of worked for everybody over there. So, you know, I think that that's an important thing, that that the folks that are moving into the neighborhood, most of them don't even know a lot of the Mexican restaurants in the neighborhood, which blows my mind because there's some really great ones. You know, I, who lived in the neighborhood for 8.5 years, didn't know there was a little bodega in Sunnyside. You know, that's, you know, disappointing. So, you know, we're just not getting the word out, and we need to be able to be better about that as a community.
Great, thank you. It sounds like some great conversations happened between everybody. Was there anyone else who wanted to chime in before we?
I'll throw it in really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
We don't want to forget about the manufacturing and industrial pieces of the neighborhood that we all live in as well. So that's a significant percentage of, well, I mean, it is a percentage of the Sunnyside neighborhood, and a reasonably important economic contributor to jobs, et cetera, up there. So how we address that going forward is important.
Yes, that's a great point. It's also a big part of the Chaffee Park neighborhood as well. And, you know, that's some good jobs that are located there. And how does that, you know, a part of our neighborhoods going forward? So I'm just gonna pull up my slides again. Let's see, and hopefully get everybody out of here on time. And I know we did a lot of talking today. We're hoping we can give you all more opportunities in our future meetings to do most of the talking. Just some reminders that, again, thank you all for joining this first meeting. We will have this survey out, and we'll have future discussions, but so don't feel like you were just limited to that, you know, 30-minute conversation today about, you know, issues and opportunities. That will be kind of our discussion point in the coming months. But our next meeting is on July 20th, and that'll be at 6 o'clock again, still virtual. We will dedicate a large portion of that meeting to an equity training. So we'll have a gentleman named Dante James come and kind of help us have a conversation around what equity is and what does that mean for it to be one of our key goals through this process. So that will be the majority of that meeting. We'll also want to talk again about kind of our community kickoff and our engagement strategy at that meeting. We will send around another poll about our future meeting schedule. So we would ideally like to get on a regular schedule so that everybody kind of knows when we meet every month. And then also ask you about if you have any preferences around continuing for these meetings to be virtual, or if you'd like to do some in person or a mix. And just a reminder about that community kickoff on July 27th. And we really would love you all, if you can send us any, you know, connection points, if you know of events or ideas on, you know, groups that we should be reaching out to in the meantime, please feel free to send that to our team, because we would like to get out there and be talking with the community as much as possible in this summer. Any last questions in our last few minutes from anybody?
Hi, this is Tripy. Not a question, but I wanted, I wanted to invite you guys all to a Sunnyside barbecue that we're going to be having on 7/29. It's a Thursday at 5:30 at Factotum. And it's going to be, you know, burgers, dogs, and we're brewing a beer of our own that we're going to be selling. Might be a great time for all of us to meet one another and, you know, have a bite to eat. And then we're going to go into a membership meeting. And we could, Liz, if you wanted to pop up a table for this, we could do that as well.
Yeah, that's the exact type of events we'd love to hear about. And we would invite all of you to help us participate in that and do some of that engagement as well. So thank you thanks for letting us know, Tripy.
Yep, thank you.
Liz, thank you for getting us off to what I feel is a good start.
Oh, thank you. And thank you all for taking your time. And I really see this as a partnership between all of us. And I'm very excited about all these different perspectives and connections that you all have to the community. And I think we have a really great opportunity to really do this in a way that brings the community in and has them kind of make this vision. So thank you all. I appreciate your time again, and feel free to reach out if any questions pop in your head in the meantime. And then look out for some emails from all of us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Liz, I'm going to email you the list of Federal Boulevard bid events we have coming up between now and October.
Yep. My son just went to the Mystery Playhouse today.
Oh, did he?
It was his YMCA camp.
That's so funny.
I was
So
like,
that
oh, I got to get there.
They're going to be having monthly parties, neighborhood parties, where a pop-up would be really welcome and appropriate. So I'll email you that information.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all again. This was
have
very
a good night.
good.